this afternoon and to speak to the Bill C-3. Canadian citizenship is one of the most important things our country has to offer. It's not just a document or a passport. It is a commitment to Canada, its people, and its values. It carries rights and privileges, but it also carries responsibilities. And that is why citizenship must be defended and upheld. It cannot be treated casually, and it must never be handed out without limits. Bill C-3 undermines that principle. People who may never set foot in Canada, who have not contributed to our society and have no intention of living here, could be granted Canadian citizenship. That is to destroy what it means to be Canadian. Canadians understand that our immigration and citizenship systems are already broken. Adding a vast, open-ended pool of new applicants without any planning or clear limits will only make things worse. The government has not released how many new citizens Bill C-3 could create. Numbers, cost, and the implementation plan are clearly lacking. This lack of accountability matters. Citizenship must and does mean more than a piece of paper. It represents a real and substantial connection to Canada. That means living here, contributing here, and being a part of a united Canadian society. Conservatives believe in a citizenship system that is fair, reasonable, and rooted in accountability, and that puts Canada first. We will not support policies that so badly skew the meaning of being a Canadian citizen, and we will not put Canadian workers and families at a disadvantage. Conservatives will continue to fight for policies that protect our sovereignty, ensuring citizenship retains its value and keeps our country strong for generations to come. Canada deserves no less. Conservatives cannot support this bill. It's an attempt to cheapen citizenship and make it less valuable. Conservatives stand up for integrity, security, and responsible immigration. As many here know, Canada's immigration policy used to be the envy of the world. This bill potentially radically obscures a common vision of the value of being a Canadian. Handing out Canadian citizenship to people with little or no connection to Canada is insanity. To give a bit of a background, this is a recreation of a previous bad bill that the Liberal government last attempted to overhaul Canadian citizenship laws. Going back to December of 2021, 23 applicants from 7 families filed a constitutional challenge. The subsequent ruling by the Ontario Superior Court of Justice declared that the first-generation rule in the 2009 Citizenship Act was unconstitutional, giving federal government 6 months to respond. And instead of appealing the decision, there have now been 4 extensions, currently requiring that a response be legislated by November 20th of this year. So the clock is now ticking, and Bill C-3 represents the new version of the Liberals' unpassed Bill C-71 in the last sitting. But just because the timer is on doesn't mean that we should pass bad policy. All we need to do is to respond what needs to be fixed. But instead, Bill C-3 opens the door to abuse, dramatically broadening access to citizenship, and this is primarily done by eliminating the requirement for strong ties to Canada.
2 years ago that we...
Where this bill could have maintained a focused and targeted approach like
I think
Conservative
Mr.
Senator Martin's
and
Bill
breaches of it
S-45 did, this Bill C-3 proposes sweeping changes that dramatically impact the face of citizenship. To give a bit of context on this, back in 2009, the Conservative government at that time addressed concerns about Canadians of convenience. That is, Canadians who hold Canadian citizenship, who live outside the country and do not participate in Canadian society. Consequently, Bill C-37 amended the Citizenship Act to limit citizenship access down to 1 generation. In other words, non-resident parents could pass on citizenship down to their children, but grandchildren would not automatically be granted citizenship. From this legislation, we became aware of lost Canadians, who are people who either had Canadian citizenship and lost it, or thought that they were entitled to Canadian citizenship but never received it. Senator Martin's Bill S-245 could have been addressed to these concerns. Instead, this government is trying to rush through a bad bill while so many other factors need our immediate attention. Because not considering factors like housing, inflation, home building, job security, natural resources, crime, and even our drug rate is not being honest to any newcomers to Canada. When people come to Canada, we want to extend the Canadian promise that envisions hard work being rewarded, food and home being affordable, streets being safe, borders being secure, and all people coming together united under a proud flag. And that's why getting this legislation right is so important. Right now, we have the second highest unemployment in the G7, the worst household debt, and in some regions, the highest house prices. And to top it all off, our food prices keep going up and up. Through this election, we were promised that we would build, baby, build, doubling home building, and instead, we're being told home building will fall by 13%. Already in Toronto and the GTA, home building has fallen by half. Now I know there were announcements made on the weekend by this Liberal government, but as far as I know, announcements so far are not translating into shovels in the ground. Either way, we simply do not have enough home for Canadians. In the previous version of this bill, the Parliamentary Budget Office revealed that 115,000 new Canadian citizens could immediately be added to Canada at a cost of $21 million just for the processing. That being only one estimate, Ryan Tumilty of the National Post wrote that, in fact, this government has no idea how many people will automatically be granted citizenship if this legislation is passed, because there is a retroactiveness to the current legislation. Note that this is all happening after we were promised less spending during the election, and from what we know right now, deficit spending looks to be 100% bigger than what we were promised. This is important because the proposed cost implications of Bill C-3 to Canadians related to health care, related to pensions, related to education, aren't even considered a factor. And that was discovered in the technical briefing. Canada is already challenged economically. Again, the election promises were that we would have more investment, but just last week, we discovered that $62 billion of net investment has left the country since this Prime Minister took office. The National Bank says this is the biggest net outflow in any 5-month period in Canadian history. Unemployment, cost of living, the cost of home building, tariffs, and crime are all up. And worse yet, the CIBC says that unemployment matches levels that are typically only seen during recessionary periods, and our youth are the ones that are suffering the most. Over 17% of students are returning to school this fall, having failed to secure a summer job. For younger students, aged 15 to 16, unemployment rose to a rate of over 31%. We have some catching up to do, which is one of the reasons why Bill C-3 is just not doable in its form. Ministers have expressed that they are open to edits and changes, but this bill has massive flaws. There's an old proverb that reads, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." Conservatives want to see better legislation. We want to see legislation that will be passed and that will be successful. Just imagine, the Liberals are proposing that we streamline multi-generational foreign residents to claim citizenship with minimal presence in the country. Imagine that we are extending multi-generational access, generation after generation, when a parent has to only spend 1,095 non-consecutive days in Canada and with no criminal record check. One immigration lawyer asked the question, what kind of evidence will be required to demonstrate one's physical presence in Canada? Citizenship is not about having minimal connection to Canada or like joining a club for convenience. Citizenship is a commitment to Canada, to its people, its values, and it carries rights and privileges, but it also carries responsibility. Finally, it's about people coming from different backgrounds, different languages, and different countries and cultures, all uniting meaningfully with common vision for the country we love. God keep Canada, the true north, strong and free.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Deputy House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to welcome my opposite colleague back to the House of Commons. There's a lot of things that were said in the colleague's speech that I don't want to blame my colleague for misleading, but it's very misleading to Canadians. When we connect crime and jobs and housing to Bill C-3, it's very misleading to Canadians. It's not, I think it's important to remember what the bill is about. And the Conservatives have on multiple occasions voted for this bill. They've told, I've met lost Canadians who, some of them are family members of service members of our country. Why are we misleading Canadians? To make them think that this is a new bill, that this is something that it's not, in connecting crime, housing, and all other issues to a bill that we have made a promise to Canadians who have served our country, that we will bring them back to our country, give them the citizenship that they deserve because they are members of our country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member from London West for that question and for asking for clarification. This bill is about providing citizenship to multi-generational people that have never lived here, that have no intention of living here, and that have never been in Canada. A person to become a Canadian citizen under this bill does not require to have spent a day in Canada. The parents are required to spend 1,095 days here over their lifetime, but a parent could conceivably, in its current form, receive Canadian citizenship without ever having spent a day in Canada. And yet they could use their Canadian citizenship for travel purposes, for coming in here in the event of a medical emergency, for cheaper education, or to take advantage of our social system here because they would be a Canadian resident. This bill has seriously been flawed, and the member should actually take notice of that.
The honourable member for La Pointe de l'Île. Yes, I'd like to give my colleague a shout out and congratulate him on his speech. There are some cases where the act appears to be unjust. For example, when the parents are citizens here and they go work abroad, they have a child abroad, and when they come back, they have to apply again for the child's citizenship. And if that child goes abroad too, there can be problems getting citizenship for their child. So could the member mention a specific case, a very clear case, where he finds that it's unjust for people to get their citizenship through C3? The honourable member for Provencher.
Thank you to a member from Pointe de Lavelle. I have a great respect for that member and for the work that he does in this Parliament, so thank you very much. So the question is very good. Where would Bill C-3 not be fair to someone? Bill C-3 extends citizenship to people whose parents have only been here 1,095 days and who they themselves may never come here and may never want to come here and will never contribute to our Canadian society, never be part of our communities, not even necessarily know either of our two official languages, and yet they could be full Canadians. Right now there is a group of people called the Lost Canadians who were previously affected or who are affected by previous legislation, which this bill also captures, but it could do it with a lot less broadening than in its current state. And I think the bill, if it's not defeated entirely and something better brought forward, needs some significant amendments at committee that will really refine the scope of the bill to include lost Canadians, as is the intent.
Member for Calgary-Nosu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to be very clear here. What the Deputy Government House Leader suggested was that the first day back in the House of Commons after, Liberal prorogation, leadership race, election, that somehow we shouldn't be debating a bill on immigration after the Liberals have broken Canada's immigration system. And we know that the Liberals have increased immigration levels to an extent while the economy has shrunk, right, that immigration levels can't keep up with housing supply. They can't keep up with jobs, and they can't keep up with healthcare. There have been reports and news articles to the contrary. I think it's really important to set that record straight. So of course Parliament should be looking at any bill that the government is proposing with regard to immigration. So my question to my colleague is this. There are amendments that this bill needs with regard to language proficiency, the length of time somebody has to be in Canada, and likely other things like criminal record checks. Does my colleague think that the Liberals will work collaboratively and pass those amendments?
Very brief answer from the Honourable Member for Polish.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the member from Calgary, Nose Hill, for all the tremendous work that she's done in Parliament over the years, and especially on this piece of legislation. She's really showed her expertise in this area and on this file, and she's absolutely right. Our immigration system has been severely broken by the Liberals, and they aren't taking into consideration the reality that we live here in Canada and that many things are broken that need to be fixed, and our eyes should be on that.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Selkirk.